So as we know, the Mueller report was released in April. And thanks to Trump's talking points, what most Americans heard from it was that there was no obstruction and no collusion. No collusion and no obstruction. But Robert Mueller actually, during the report, he detailed many instances of the obstruction cases, which many people may not have read, including one particular back and forth between Trump's attorney and Michael Flynn's attorney. Of course, Michael Flynn was the disgraced national security advisor for Trump at some point. But now, thanks to another federal judge, Emmett Sullivan, he's ordered a release of some of the voicemails that were sent from Dowd to a few of Mueller's attorneys. And since we don't read, we get a chance to hear it. So let's take a listen.
It wouldn't surprise me if you've gone on to make a deal and work with the government. I understand that you can't change joint defense. That's one thing. If, on the other hand, there's information that implicates the president, then we've got a national security issue, or maybe a national security issue, I don't know.
So in this first section, he wants to make sure that these attorneys understand the absolute and utter importance of the information that potentially Michael Flynn is giving. Now, of course, this is when Flynn he let the Trump people know that he can no longer work with the joint defense, what's going on, which basically means he was ready to talk to the government, which is what Dowd was worried about. But Dowd continued on after talking about the importance to talk about then maybe leaning on him for not giving up all the information.
We need some kind of heads up, just for the sake of protecting all interests if we can, without you having to give up any confidential information. So, and if it's the former, then, remember what we've always said about the president and his feeling toward Flynn. That still remains. But
those feelings still remain. If it's the former, which is, if you have information that's going to implicate the president, we need to know about it, and you need to also remember that we can maybe do something for you to keep that under wraps.
Wow. We could figure something out. The president still has feelings for you, Flynn. He loves you. He never meant what he said. Come back, be loyal, girl.
Francesca, you've been, you read the entire Mueller report, word for word, page by page, which
highlighted by highlight.
I got mocked by Anna for taking notes.
Well, because
Jayar
said he wanted to listen to the audio version of it, and then Fran's like, yeah, but you want to read it so you can highlight it.
It's Franny, okay? It's Franny, not Fran. And yes, I read it, and no, I can't necessarily summarize everything, but there was a lot of good takeaways, and this was a part like we were talking about. We already knew that this had happened. This was one of the many pieces of obstruction, which is one leg of the three sort of pronged investigation and report that is the Mueller report, which was basically that this is a mafia shakedown. This is what happens when Trump is leaning on all of his stooges to be loyal, and it'd be a shame if the president didn't trust you anymore, and it would be a shame if the president, if you had to say something about him. And so that's exactly what a mob boss does. You've seen The Sopranos. If you haven't, it's the best show ever. And this is the exact playbook, and it's where the Mueller report has the most evidence. I would argue that there's a lot of evidence in the other two areas, specifically the Trump campaign conspiracy and ties to Russians. But I guess we're not indicting. I guess that was never even the point, unlike what we all thought was supposed to be the point. But this is also where Mueller has set up and teed up Congress.
Right.
Look, it's on audio. There is a literal leaning on. This is obstruction. His lawyer, absolutely at the behest of the president, is asking Flynn to either both give them a heads up and or just maybe don't say anything. Like maybe zip it up.
So thoughts on Nancy Pelosi's unwillingness to even open an impeachment inquiry?
I mean, it's so cowardly.
Yeah.
It's absolutely cowardly, and it's disheartening after reading. I read 480 pages and took notes, but everything is there to continue this criminal investigation, to potentially, definitely impeach the president when under high crimes and misdemeanors and treasonous acts. Absolutely. If only you're talking about the violating things like the Logan Act, the Emoluments Clause, all of these things that say you can't have business interests and or accept gifts or money from a foreign power. You can't negotiate around the backs of the United States with a foreign power to, let's say, drop sanctions on Russia. If only that, and we're not even talking about WikiLeaks and the most likely prior knowledge that the Trump campaign had, which again is hugely redacted in the Mueller report, but it's a really fun game of Mad Libs. And I have played it. If only that, there's enough to impeach. There's enough to begin impeachment hearings. So it's incredibly cowardly, not to mention that so many people in her party, including her advisors, are pushing Pelosi to begin those
I think
proceedings.
Nadler's on that too. So the thing is also Nancy Pelosi is waiting for the American people that haven't read it or won't pay attention to these aspects to come up with it themselves so she can be told. Again, we've talked about the centrist approaches of Biden. He's waiting for people to nudge him and tell him to go a different direction because he's too afraid to go to that direction on his own. This leadership is more like, but if we do it, they're gonna be mad at me. You have to make your case. Now, the thing is, I've always understood that approach and saying, hey, if we start these impeachment hearings and then everyone goes, how dare you, it's gonna hurt us. I get that. So you know what you do, crazy, and this is what Elizabeth Warren was saying when she was in that town hall with Chris Hayes. Hey, we can either give up or we make our case and do the deal. Make it happen. Go forward with it and tell people why you're going forward with it. You read the whole damn thing, and after you read it, you gave us 5 things that people have no idea are included with it. And by the way, this voicemail that we just now heard from Dowd to Flynn's attorneys is one of the multiple instances. This is one, and it's one aspect of one.
One of Michael Flynn's phone calls that was recorded that I don't think the others have been given actually to this judge yet, haven't been released. But the other ones are the juiciest ones because those are the ones that are with Sergei Kislyak, the Russian ambassador, and they have to do with dropping sanctions. They have to do with a tit for tat, you scratch my back, I scratch yours relationship that the Trump administration campaign in this moment was setting up for the future.
On the go? Don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcast.